On his way from Pittsburgh to San Jose, we catch up with Don Cherry to remember Mr. Hockey. Don, thanks a lot for doing this with us.
Oh, that's okay. We're in the middle of Chicago right now. We just got told our plane has been changed. We have to change our ticket. So we got lots of time and happy to do it.
How will you remember Gordie Howe?
Well, I tell you the truth. When he played and he was at his best, I was in the American Hockey League. But then I coached against him when he was with Houston. And no, not Houston, Hartford. That was it. And I remember I just told a story about the guys killing penalties. Everybody talks about his scoring, but nobody ever talks about how he could kill penalties and play never skated a lot, but he knew where to be all the time. And believe me, even when he was in his 40s, he was a tough guy, and nobody went near him. I'll tell you that.
Have we ever seen a combination of skill and toughness like Gordie Howe?
No, there's nobody like Gordie Howe. I mean, Bobby Orr was tough. Don't get me wrong, and he was one of the best fighters. But Gordie was exceptional. And the big thing about Gordie, a lot of people don't realize, he was a pretty good guy. He would not bother you if you weren't bothering his sons or one of his players in that. But I'll tell you, when you bothered anybody on his team, he was absolutely cruel. And he could use the stick. He had no fear of anybody, and listen, if you bothered a smaller player or if you bothered his son, especially his son, it was really something to see. But you didn't fool around with him, and I think the time he got hurt, he got in the hospital, he was hitting somebody and tripped and fell. So I remember the one when I was in the American Hockey League, that big fight he had in New York, the Lou Fontinato. That was one of the best men. And Lou said, the only time I played all the years in the National Hockey League, only people remember the one fight I lost.
You know, it's funny about that fight and what it meant at that time, because there's a great deal of people watching right now who never saw him play. Guys of my generation who didn't have a dad to tell them that story. But at the time, Lou Fontinato is basically the heavyweight champ of the NHL. And Gordie Howe, here he is, you know, Art Ross's MVPs, and he goes toe-to-toe with him and beats him up.
Well, if you remember my show, The Grapevine,
yep.
I had him on, and he was telling me that story. Like, he had hit one of the smaller players for, I forget what happened, and Lou they were going at each other, and he saw Lou coming at him, Leaping Lou as they call him. Yeah. He saw him coming from the side, and poor Lou, he just walked in and were right. And I remember on Life magazine, it was speaking of pictures, was the whole spread, and I mean, he really did a number on Lou. And let me tell you something, Lou Fontinato was the toughest guy in the league, but Gordie did a number on him.
How different was Mr. Hockey on the ice and off the ice?
Well, I tell a story. Where I got to know him was at the banquets a lot. And I used to see him at the banquets, and boy, everybody used to treat him like he walked very slow. You know how Donald Trump walks and Conrad, but that's the way he used to walk, and he had an air about him. There was sort of a kingly air about him, and the kids, he just loved kids. And when he was signing, and if you didn't say please, and if you asked, could I have an autograph, you didn't say please, he'd have the Sharpie mark your wrist. He'd mark it on your hand. And if you didn't say thank you, oh my goodness, it was something. So he kept him in check, but he really loved kids, though. He really did.
There's a respect that goes with Gordie Howe, and maybe it was because, I mean, to think that he skated his first NHL game in the 40s and then his last NHL game in the 80s, but the level of respect he had, and, you know, behind me we have the picture of Gretzky and the Iconics. Yeah. Do you know if there was a guy who had more respect in the game than Gordie Howe?
No, they call him Mr. Hockey, and he used to sign at Mr. Hockey, so he really did. He had and he worked at it too. He helped the National Hockey League, and when he was at that All-Star game, and they had a standing ovation for him, and they wouldn't stop, and he got tears in his eyes. I never saw anything like that. That was he was Mr. Hockey, and they dubbed it right, because when you go to a banquet with him, it was almost like a royalty or a king was there.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you before I let you go. By sheer chance, here we are celebrating the lives of Gordie Howe and Muhammad Ali on the same day. It's near surreal, and I know that you're a fan of the sweet science as well. And as the funeral goes today for Muhammad Ali, do you have any memories the man they call the greatest of all time?
Well, I have, first of all, I always used to like when he do the Ollie Shuffle before he knew he was going to win. That's the thing I like. And I remember Sugar Ray Hardin, that what he used to do when he knew he had a guy going. But it was sad. I used to love to watch him, as you know, and listen and all that. I remember the Liston fight. And the Liston, my buddy said, I'm going to get some popcorn. He come back. I don't know about that fight. I really don't know about that fight. Well, I don't want to go into that. I mean, Liston fought 15 rounds with a broken jaw.
Yeah.
But and then all of a sudden he goes down like that. But we were at the game. We were at the in Colorado. My son and I, Tim and I, went to see him fight Holmes. And as soon as I saw him, I know what he had done. To get his weight down, he had taken water pills, you know, to get it. And I said, Tim, he's going to get murdered here. And that was the most cruel thing I ever seen. And Larry Holmes kept looking at the referee to stop it, but he had to win. And it felt so bad. And I remember after the fight, we were all walking out. It was like a funeral. We all had tears in our eyes because we loved Muhammad so much and everything. And we knew that was going to be his last fight. But boy, when he was in his prime, he really did dance out there. And he used to. Hey, funny thing is, we talk about Gordie. But Muhammad was pretty cruel too. Remember what he did to Patterson? He said, "What's my name? What's my name?"
Yeah.
Could have knocked him out any time. So there was an ounce of cruelty in both of them, but maybe that's what made them great.
Don, we wouldn't have it any other way. A legend discussing two legends. Really appreciate the time.
Okay, Tim. Thanks a lot. Toodaloo.